The air hung heavy and still. A sweltering humidity permeated the dense jungle. Towering trees draped in emerald vines formed an impenetrable wall around the clearing. The only sound was the incessant drone of insects, a constant reminder of the unforgiving environment. This was the arena, a place where the laws of nature reigned supreme, where survival was measured in breaths, not hours. The men stood in a loose circle, their faces etched with apprehension. 100 souls, plucked from their ordinary lives and thrust into the heart of darkness. They came from all walks of life, shopkeepers and teachers, accountants and fathers, all united by a single terrifying reality. They were the hunted. The ground trembled. A low growl, primal and full of rage, echoed through the jungle. The men exchanged uneasy glances, their eyes darting toward the source of the sound. He was close, the lord of this domain, the king they had come to dethrone. He emerged from the undergrowth like a phantom, a colossal silverback gorilla, his sheer size enough to dwarf any man. His muscled arms, thicker than tree trunks, spoke of unimaginable power. His eyes, dark and intelligent, burned with a cold fury. This was no ordinary beast. This was a rogue, driven from his troop and fueled by a primal rage. His scarred hide bore testament to countless battles fought and won. He moved with a deceptive grace, his massive frame seemingly gliding over the uneven ground. He was the apex predator, and these men were trespassers in his domain. He beat his chest, a thunderous sound that reverberated through the clearing, a challenge, a declaration of war. The men flinched, their bravado momentarily forgotten. This was no longer a game. This was a fight for survival. They were armed, if you could call it that. Crude spears fashioned from sharpened branches, a handful of hunting knives more accustomed to field dressing deer than facing down a monster. One man, a butcher by trade, clutched his cleaver like a lifeline. Their fear was palpable, a tangible presence in the humid air. Some looked to the sky as if seeking divine intervention. Others whispered silent prayers. The weight of their situation pressed down on them. They were not warriors. They were accountants, teachers, shopkeepers. Ordinary men thrust into an extraordinary situation. They were outmatched, outgunned, and out of their element. But they had one thing the gorilla didn't: numbers. 100 against 1. The odds were still in their favor, weren't they? The jungle itself was an enemy, a tangled web of vines and thorns that snagged at their clothes and tripped their feet. The air was thick with the smell of rotting vegetation and the ever-present threat of unseen predators. The canopy above, a dense mat of leaves, blocked out the sun, casting the jungle floor in a perpetual twilight. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent a jolt of fear through the men. The jungle was alive, watching, waiting. It was a silent partner to the gorilla, amplifying their fear and disorienting their senses. The men struggled to maintain their formation, their movements hampered by the unforgiving terrain. They were easy prey in this emerald labyrinth, and the gorilla knew it. Section 5, First Blood. The attack was swift and brutal. One moment the gorilla was a distant threat, a shadow in the undergrowth. The next, he was upon them, a whirlwind of muscle and fury. His roar, a deafening sound of rage, ripped through the air as he crashed into their ranks. Men screamed, their voices lost in the cacophony of the jungle. They scattered like ants before a storm, their flimsy weapons useless against the gorilla's raw power. One man, his leg trapped beneath a fallen log, could only watch in horror as the gorilla bore down on him. The sickening crunch of bone was followed by a scream that was abruptly cut short. The first blood had been spilled, and it was just the beginning. Section 6, Whispers of Strategy. Panic threatened to consume them, but amidst the chaos, a few voices rose above the din. Leaders, born of desperation and a primal will to survive. A burly firefighter, his voice hardened by years of battling infernos, rallied a group of men around him. A young soldier, his training kicking in, barked orders, trying to instill some semblance of order. They knew they couldn't fight the gorilla head-on, not in this jungle where he held all the advantages. They needed a plan, a strategy that played to their strengths. Numbers, coordination, and the faint hope that their makeshift weapons could inflict enough pain to drive the beast back. The whispers started, plans hatched in the heat of terror. They would use the jungle itself against the gorilla, herding him into traps, wearing him down with 1,000 cuts. It was a desperate gamble, but it was their only chance. Section 7, A glimmer of hope. The tide seemed to turn, ever so slightly, when the butcher landed a blow. He had been waiting, his cleaver raised, his face a mask of grim determination. As the gorilla charged past, he swung with all his might, the blade finding its mark on the beast's flank. A roar of pain erupted from the gorilla, shaking the very earth. He stumbled, momentarily stunned by the unexpected pain. Blood, dark and thick, welled from the wound, staining his silver fur. The men, emboldened by this first sign of weakness, pressed their attack. Spears found their mark, biting into the gorilla's thick hide. Rocks, hurled with desperate strength, pelted his massive frame. The air was thick with the smell of blood and fear, a heady mix that fueled both predator and prey. Section 8, the final stand. The gorilla, enraged by the pain, fought like a demon. He swatted men aside like flies, his strength undiminished despite his wounds. But the men, fueled by adrenaline and the slimmest sliver of hope, refused to back down. They had him surrounded now, a circle of fear and fury slowly constricting around the wounded beast. The firefighter, his face a mask of blood and sweat, led the final charge. They rained down blows upon the gorilla, a chaotic symphony of clanging metal and desperate shouts. The gorilla, his lifeblood staining the jungle floor, roared one last time, a sound of defiance and despair. Then, with a final shudder, he collapsed, his massive body crushing the undergrowth beneath him. Silence descended upon the clearing, broken only by the ragged gasps of the survivors. They had won, but at what cost? Section 9, Victory and its Price. The clearing was a scene of carnage. Broken bodies littered the ground, testament to the gorilla's ferocity and the men's desperation. The stench of blood mingled with the humid air, a gruesome reminder of the battle just fought. The survivors, their faces etched with a mixture of relief and horror, surveyed the scene. They had faced their fears and emerged victorious, but the victory felt hollow, the price too high. They were no longer the men they had been when they first entered this green hell. They had been tempered by violence, their souls forever marked by the horrors they had witnessed. As they limped out of the jungle, their wounds bandaged, their spirits broken, a single question lingered in the air. Was it a victory, or had they merely traded one cage for another?